Hello, this is my first time posting here because I need some help and it's somewhat urgent. I didn't want to share this with friends, so I'm posting here. I'm a 52-year-old woman and have been a single mother to my son, who is 25 years old, raising him alone since he was born. Unfortunately, my husband passed away while I was pregnant. He died of an aneurysm in his sleep, and when I woke up, he was gone. Since then, I've been raising him alone, and I've truly sacrificed a lot, as any single parent can attest. I'm not saying he owes me anything because I'm his mother, but a little appreciation would be nice. Unfortunately, a few days ago, he told me he doesn't want me at his wedding because, according to his fiancée and her family, I don't look like the type of wealthy people they expect to attend, which has deeply hurt me. Therefore, I've also done some things that are really out of character for me, but I couldn't help it. This all started 2 years ago when he first dated Zoe, who, to my knowledge, he met through friends. She comes from a rather wealthy family. Her parents own one of the top real estate companies in the state, and they are very rich. She looks the part, always dressed in luxury brands from head to toe, and she owns 3 cars. By contrast, I obviously look like a poor person because I'm just an economics professor at a university. I do make some money, which has been enough for me and my son, paying all our bills and rent, and able to raise him on my own for at least 30 years. That was enough for us, at least until he started dating Zoe. Then things started to change, and our relationship became strange. I never had any issues with him and Zoe or her personally until recently, even after our first meeting, when my son later called to tell me I needed to start changing some things around my house to make it look better. He said, most of the furniture in my house really looks old, which embarrassed him because he has been to Zoe's parents' mansion, where everything is beautiful and shiny, so he hoped I would at least try to make my home look better. We argued after the first meeting because I didn't think there was anything wrong with how my house looked. And some things are really old, which means they have character. I don't want to live a flashy life like Zoe or her parents, because I know I can't afford it, and I want to live within my means. I'm very satisfied with my life, I have no complaints, so he has no reason to complain because some of the things he wanted me to change, like some furniture, were actually chosen by my late husband, which I treasure very much. We argued then, and I told him if he was so embarrassed by me, then he shouldn't have introduced me to his wealthy girlfriend in the first place. Then he realized he was a jerk, later apologized, and we reconciled. But since then, he never brought Zoe to my house again. I've only seen her a few times. I met her parents once at their engagement party, which I attended. Even then, my son had a lot of opinions about what I wore. He said it was an engagement party, and I should try harder to pay attention to my outfit. But in my opinion, what I wore was completely fine. I'm not stupid. I could see that his real problem was that I didn't wear luxury brands, just clothes I could afford. But I guess he didn't dare say it outright. Anyway, I tried not to mind, even though he started distancing himself from me since he introduced Zoe to me. I still tried to keep in touch with him. But 3 days ago, he came to see me, told me that after seeing me at the engagement party, Zoe and her parents think I'm not suitable to attend their wedding because the main guests will be their friends and other business partners who work with her parents, not his family members. Since Zoe's parents are funding most of the wedding, he thought it would be better to respect their wishes. He even said he would hold a private ceremony later that I would be invited to, but now he just hopes I can understand his position because he ultimately doesn't want me to feel out of place. When he said this, I felt very hurt. I started to cry, but he was very annoyed, saying there was nothing to cry about, because it's just a fact. I don't look rich enough, not suitable for there. He doesn't want me to embarrass myself for him. He told me he hopes I can understand, but I'm just being selfish without considering his image in front of his in-laws. After I stopped crying, I told him to leave my house, not to come back. He tried to argue, but I just yelled at him, asking him to leave. Afterward, I was still very depressed, so I decided to do something. I'm not sure if it's right. So a few weeks ago, I actually helped him secure the wedding venue he wanted. A few weeks ago, he told me he was struggling to secure a venue. Apparently, the place he wanted is Zoe's favorite, and it wasn't listed among the estates shown to them by their wedding planner, but it's a very beautiful place, slightly away from the city. However, the owner was unwilling to rent it out, refusing to let them get married there. He had been negotiating with this person and Zoe's parents, but no matter how much money they offered, he just wouldn't let go. Zoe was equally stubborn. She even refused to consider other places. Now only a few weeks away from the wedding, they had even printed that address on the invitations per Zoe's insistence, but they still hadn't secured the venue, still trying to negotiate with the owner. When he told me the owner's name, I realized I knew this person. I realized I had gone to college with this person. I immediately thought maybe I could help him, but I wanted to give him a surprise, so I just told him I was sorry to hear this, hoping things would eventually work out for him. But later I decided to somehow contact this person. After chatting with him for a few days, I found out he was unwilling to rent his property for events because he and his wife were worried if they allowed events there, the organizers would ruin the place, which had happened several times before, so they didn't want this to happen again. They wanted to protect the natural beauty of their property. But I told him, we're talking about my son. Since he knows me, I can guarantee these things won't happen. Also, Zoe's parents are also the owners of a top real estate company, so he doesn't need to worry about the place being ruined. It took some time, but a few days later I finally convinced him. He agreed to talk to my son. I also convinced him not to mention my name, because I wanted to tell them after the wedding, giving myself a surprise. Anyway, once I convinced him, he agreed. My son was very happy. He had no idea it was me operating behind the scenes. I guess that's why he was so confident when he told me he didn't want me to attend the wedding. Anyway, after his visit, I felt very hurt. I decided to call the venue's owner. I explained to him what had just happened. I wasn't going to say much, but I was just too sad. Eventually told him everything. He even had to comfort me, although we weren't particularly close. But he and his wife were very kind to me. They told me they would pull out of this deal because they didn't think they wanted to have anything to do with such an ungrateful person. I thanked them. The next day they told me they had returned the money they had received in advance and told them they would no longer be able to rent their property to them, so they had to find another place. So his parents were apparently very angry, even threatened to sue them, but they said they didn't care about these things. There were 2 weeks left until the wedding. The documents they signed clearly stated they could cancel 1 week before the event, so they couldn't sue them legally, because they followed the contract. It wasn't their fault. They didn't let their lawyer carefully read the details of the contract. So now they don't have a venue. I'm very satisfied, even decided to write all this into a letter, send it to my son. I agree this is a petty move, but he has hurt me a lot in the past few months. I can no longer tolerate this. So I explained everything in the letter, didn't send it, but went to his house that night, knocked on the door, left the letter on the threshold, then drove home, making sure he couldn't contact me after that. I decided to block him as soon as I got in the car. That night, he came to see me again, but this time he looked sorry. He told me he came over as soon as he read the letter. He came to apologize because he didn't know it was me who managed to get the venue. He was really crying, saying he was really sorry for the way he treated me. He didn't know this would hurt me so much. But now he had talked to Zoe, even she was uneasy, so he needed me to talk to the owner, solve the problem, because there were only 2 weeks before the wedding. All the invitations with the venue address had been sent out. They really needed my help. He started begging me to help, but I told him the treatment he has given me over the past few months since he started dating Zoe is absolutely unacceptable. The things he said were really hurtful, so I don't think I want to have any relationship with him after this, because I believe I raised a good person, but he was very shallow, decided to stand with his fiancée and her parents, instead of his mother. I told him, from the time he was a child, I sacrificed a lot for him. In return, I just hoped he would appreciate me a little. But he has made it very clear that he feels ashamed and embarrassed about me, doesn't want to acknowledge me as his family, just because his fiancée and her parents disapprove, embarrassed about me. He said he would take back everything, talk to Zoe and her parents, let them apologize to me, but now he just hopes I talk to the owner, solve the problem, so they can get married at the venue they've already chosen. I told him I had already talked to the owner. I won't disturb them again and again, so now they have to figure out how to solve this problem themselves, because I can't help them in any way. Then he started to get angry, told me I was really being unreasonable now, so I told him he had to leave, because I couldn't help him. At that time I felt very firm, but he seemed to just give up, told me I could do whatever I wanted to do, but if I didn't help him this time, I would lose him forever, because he never thought I was a vindictive person. But now it's clear I'm very selfish. He's had enough of having to balance the two, because it's too much pressure for him. He told me he couldn't maintain this balance anymore, but at least Zoe would understand. He claimed he was exhausted, had done enough, then he left. Since then, I've been worried if I made the right choice. So I'm here asking Aida, because I refuse to help my son find his wedding venue's owner to solve anything. It's been a week since I last about what I need to do, but now it's clear to me. I'm just a sentimental fool, but now I've figured it out. My son is old enough to handle this himself. Also, I really don't think I can make the owner change his mind, because they seem very firm on their decision. I've talked to some friends and relatives and explained the whole situation to them, because many family members were also surprised he was getting married, but they didn't receive an invitation. So I told them the real reason. He didn't invite us because he's embarrassed about his family, doesn't think we would fit in with the crowd his fiancée and her parents invited. People were really angry when I told them about the venue and other things I did. They seemed to think it was the right response. Furthermore, since the last time he left, my son hasn't even spoken to me again. We didn't end that discussion on a good note. If he really thought it was important, he would contact me again. There are only a few days left until the wedding. I don't know what they will do, because they've already printed the venue's address on the invitations, but I know this is no longer my problem, because if he doesn't want to invite me to his wedding, doesn't think I'm his family, it also means my responsibility as his mother has been lifted. So I'm still struggling emotionally with this, because it's a difficult thing. In my life, I only had my son as a single mother, but in my mind, I've already made the decision. I will stick to this decision. Update 2 Hi, there are only 2 days left until the wedding. I really don't hold out hope that my son will contact me again, but today Zoe actually contacted me, which surprised me. Why would she want to talk to me? Because I thought she and her family didn't want me to attend their wedding at all. So why would she expect me to want to talk to her? But when she called me, I had an intuition. I answered the phone. I was very cold to her, but on the other end, I could hear her trying not to cry. She told me she knew there had been a lot of friction between me and my son, but she just needed one chance to talk to me, persuade me to solve the problem. She said some very strange things, like she knows I don't like her much. We didn't start off on the right foot, but she really respects and admires me, has always been this way, so now she hopes I talk to the venue's owner, try to solve the problem, even though she knows I'm currently arguing with her fiancé. She said, my son explicitly forbade her from discussing anything with me, but she really hopes I know. When she found out I wouldn't attend the wedding, she was very disappointed. This was really strange. I lashed out at her, told her not to act in front of me, because I know she told my son, she and her family think I'm not suitable to attend the wedding. That's why I wasn't invited, and my son opposes me because of them. There was silence for a few minutes on the other end. Then she said, she and her parents never said such words. There must have been some misunderstanding. Afterward, we were both very confused. I insisted, this is exactly what my son told me, while she said, she never said such words. In fact, my son told her, it was me who refused to attend because I don't like her, don't agree with her family, because I think they're too arrogant and snobbish. When we exchanged stories, we realized my son had been lying to both of us because he was probably embarrassed and pushed Zoe and her parents to the front just to not invite me to the wedding, show everyone he doesn't really belong to their world. I realized what had happened. My head started to spin, so I told Zoe I would call her back later, discuss this in detail. But right now, I just need to rest. About half an hour later, once I managed to deal with this, I called her back. We talked some more. I told her, from the beginning, what had happened. My son always made it seem like she and her family had a problem with me, but she claimed she and her parents never said those words. She told me, my son always made her feel I didn't like her family. That's why she always kept her distance from me, even when he decided not to invite me to the wedding. What he told me was something else, you all know, but he told Zoe, it was me who didn't want to attend, because I don't agree with her, and actually told her, he would cut off contact with me, so she also needed to respect that. That's why she hadn't tried to talk to me until now. When I found out these things happened because of my son and not his partner, I felt very hurt, because at least when I believed all this was Zoe and her family's doing, I could somewhat forgive my son because I knew he was influenced by others. But now, knowing he did this on his own, I no longer have any forgiveness for him in my heart. After talking to Zoe, we were both very disappointed. She told me she no longer wants to talk to him. After apologizing for the misunderstanding, we hung up the phone. Since then, several hours have passed. I've just been sitting in one place, not knowing what to do. I'm sure, after finding out about all these things, she will cancel the wedding. It's a good thing for her. She truly deserves better. And so do I. But unfortunately, I can't find a better son. This is all I have. Whenever I think about how much I've done for him and how he treated me, my heart hurts more and more. I'm sure he knows. Zoe and I have discussed all these things. Now, knows the truth. He will contact me because he has nowhere to go. I'm sure he will come back home, but given what he's done, I think he's already lost the right to call my house his home, call me his mother. Update 3. Hi. Since yesterday's post, I've been mourning the loss of my son. He's still alive, but I know I've lost him. Even if he comes back, I won't take him back, at least until I can deal with this emotionally on my own. I had predicted he would come back home when he had nowhere to go, and that's exactly what happened today. I guess once she found out the truth, Zoe would talk to him about this, and that's exactly what happened. About a few hours in the evening, someone frantically rang my doorbell. When I saw who it was, I decided not to open the door, because it was obviously my son. I spoke to him through the intercom, told him to leave, because he no longer had a place in this house. I could see he had a pile of bags behind him. He looked very tired. His face was spotty, like he had been crying. But I didn't let this weaken my resolve. When he told me he came here to apologize, correct his mistakes, I just ignored him. I could hear his voice filled with despair. It was very difficult for me not to respond, but I just ignored him. I could hear him say, Zoe kicked him out after they argued. He knows both of us now know everything. He had been convincing Zoe's world how difficult it was. In the process, he started to act not like himself. He's very sorry for this, because he was embarrassed about me and his family, where he came from. But it was all new to him at first. After a while he got used to pretending. He was so focused on this role, he forgot I wasn't part of this role, which hurt me. He said, he knows he's been very selfish, might not deserve our forgiveness, but he just wants one chance from me, because I'm his mother. I would be more forgiving than his partner. At that time, I told him, if he really felt sorry, I might be more forgiving. But now he's just sorry because he was caught. He needs a place to live. He doesn't want to spend money in a hotel, or find a place of his own, but he doesn't feel sorry for what happened, because if he did, he wouldn't try to defend himself. He would just apologize, admit his mistakes, that's it. But he at least mentioned his difficulties at least 5 times since he appeared, so I don't believe he really feels sorry. I told him, I might eventually forgive him, I'm not sure, but now I hope he stays away from me. Then he started bargaining with me, said he was willing to pay rent and live with me, but he just wanted to come back here, reconcile with me. He even said he was sincerely saying this, because if he was willing, he could live with his friends. But I know he's bluffing, because from Zoe, I know, he didn't even invite many friends to the wedding. So it's likely they're not talking to him now. That's why he's so desperate to live with me. Anyway, after arguing for a while, he got mad at me, said I was as cold as ever, then he left. I know he won't be homeless. He has enough resources and means to find a way to live on his own in the next few weeks. Then he can find an apartment on his own. As a mother, my job is done. I just wanted to raise him to be a decent person. For a while he was a good person, but now this is no longer my problem. Update for Hi. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. On the day my son was supposed to get married, Zoe posted, saying she and my son had broken up. She hopes everyone respects her privacy during this difficult time. A bunch of people sent that post to me. I was a bit sad, but not enough to contact my son to comfort him. That day he showed up at my house, after I refused to let him in. He hasn't contacted me since, so I guess what I said was right. He was sorry then, only because he was caught. He knows no one else will talk to him but me. But I've decided not to deal with him anymore. Since then, he hasn't contacted me to apologize, so I guess he's satisfied, not contacting me anymore. I've been living alone for the past few years. So what's the difference? Being completely alone? Plus, I'm not alone. I have friends, I have family, I have my life. My son is no longer part of it. That's it. Maybe one day I'll find the courage to forgive him, but it won't be soon. I'm satisfied with that.